Hello, and welcome to the Megan Taylor Creative Podcast, a show for entrepreneurs looking to grow their business with digital marketing. In this episode, I'll be sharing with you how you can improve your content creation skills. Let's get started. In this episode of the Megan Taylor Creator Podcast, I wanted to sit down and talk about how to improve your content creation skills because I feel like not having the skills to create content that directly contributes to business growth and actually engages readers is quite a frustrating part of content marketing. And I think it's something that we all go through when we first start making content. None of our content is going to be, I don't think is going to have the same sort of value that someone who's been making content for 10 years might be able to produce, just because they've got the skills down. They know the sort of formats that work, that engage audiences, and they know generally what to say or how to write in a way that's really compelling. And obviously some people have more natural talent and others have to kind of learn how to do it along the way. I would say I fall in between having a bit more of a natural talent for making content and having to learn. I would say when it comes to written content, that's definitely where I'm most comfortable. And I feel like writing content comes a lot easier for me. But over time, I've wanted to explore multimedia content. And obviously now with the podcast, I've had to really learn how to actually record a podcast episode. You know, this is a skill. There's some technical obstacles involved. And also you have to learn kind of how to think quickly on your feet and think about what it is that you have to say in a way that's clear. And that's a much more different and challenging process for me than writing my thoughts down. So I wanted to kind of share with you someone who is pretty confident with writing but also is still learning content creation skills. I wanted to share with you the sort of things that I'm doing to improve my content creation skills this year so that I can deliver higher quality content to my audience. As always, this is going to be quite a rambly episode, so let's just get started. So before we actually take a look at some of the tips that I wanted to explore, I actually wanted to take a step back and ask you why you wanted to become a content creator in the first place. I think that knowing the why has a really big impact on the outcome in terms of deliverables and the sort of content that you actually end up creating. So for example, if you're just creating content because you want to explore yourself and you want to express yourself through content, then the outcome is probably going to be very different for someone who is creating content for a business and creating content to help them grow and to help them get more sales and just increase brand awareness, develop trust and things like that. So I'm going to be coming at this episode from the approach of someone who is wanting to create content for their business, as I assume that's why the majority of you that are listening create content. It's mainly why I create content, but I also do enjoy creating my own content in my own time too. So these tips can help for both people who just want to create content as a hobby, but also who do want to use it to help improve their income over time. So once you've discovered the reason for why, now we can actually start to look at how to become a content creator and then how to kind of implement those tips to help you be able to make better quality content faster. Becoming a content creator, and specifically a professional content creator, is a very kind of long and challenging process. It's challenging in a good way. I think a lot of people speak about the negatives of trying to make a name for themselves as a content creator, but there's so many good challenges that come into it. And, you know, you really get to learn and discover yourself throughout the entire process, all while kind of having fun. I think that the best content creators actually really enjoy creating content and they're doing it because of that. I mean, obviously, sometimes, especially nowadays where, you know, we have influence marketing and things like that, most people will be creating content with the intention of making some kind of money. But I think most modern audiences are actually aware of that. And I think that they don't get as offended by the idea that someone would be making content to make money as they did, say, maybe 10 years ago, when a lot of the content that you see online that people pay for now was actually free and the monetization of content hadn't become as mainstream as it is now. And the job of a content creator isn't frowned upon. It's something that people at schools, they actually want to do. And I think there's still a little bit of negativity, and it's not so much taboo, but I think that, if a kid was to say, I want to become a content creator to their parents who weren't necessarily in the know and educated in terms of like modern day trends and didn't know about influencer marketing and the opportunities available, then I can see why someone would maybe kind of turn their nose up at it. But the thing is, nowadays, we've been proven time and time again that content creation is a stable job and a stable form of income. But that said, it takes a long time to get there, and people may be surprised to hear, but I'm not earning a full-time income from my content creation. I'm earning a income that I can semi-live off, but it's not working full-time, if that makes sense. So I can pay my bills and things like that, but I'm not working throughout the week. And actually, I find that that's kind of, to me, is more of what a full-time income is when you're actually filling out your week and you're earning more than your potential just because you can pay your bills and pay for groceries and stuff. I think you're being really successful when you have that disposable income that I think everyone is looking for, especially with the cost of living crisis. I'm not quite sure how the cost of living crisis is impacting other people in the world, but I know that in the UK, where I'm from, it's pretty intense and life is just getting more expensive in general. So being able to have disposable income really helps to kind of offset any stress that's caused by the cost of living crisis. So I think that aiming for higher than just being able to pay your bills is really key to kind of the growth mindset and the success mindset. And that's definitely where I'm at now. And it's one of the reasons why I want to focus so much on improving my content creation skills, because I want to look at monetizing my content and I want to look at kind of breaking away from client work and living off my content creation abilities and my content creation output. So that's something that I'm really interested in, but I know that in order to get there, I do need to improve. Even though I've got 5+ years of making content, a lot of the content that I create is pretty specialist, which is good in a way because it means that I can work with more niche clients who are maybe willing to pay a little bit more for that knowledge that you already have, because it means that they don't have to train you and they don't have to give you as much information or direction on the content. You kind of already have a well-rounded idea of their industry. But I think that being able to create content for a more generalized audience is really important, and being able to create content in a way that actually actively promotes monetization is something that I really need to look into. So with that in mind, here's kind of a lot of the tips that I will be implementing this year into my content creation workflows to ensure that I am getting to that point. The first tip that I have for you for improving your content creation skills, and it's something that's quite simple, but I think something that needs to be touched on because it is so instrumental to whether or not you actually succeed with content creation, and that is to get used to creating content consistently. And a lot of this has to do with self-control and being able to find the time to actually create content. And obviously, as small business owners, this can be quite difficult because you've got your business, which is kind of your main priority, but then you also know that creating content should be a main priority too. And this year, I know we're only in January, but I've decided to set myself the goal of creating 2 blog posts a week, and so far achieving this goal. And I will be giving myself leeway for weeks when I'm sick, for example. If there's any kind of emergency either in my business or in my personal life, then I'll kind of be giving myself kind of leeway there, because I think that if you need to take care of things and if creating content is actually going to do you more harm than good, then I don't think you should do it. But generally speaking, I will be creating content twice a week over on my blog, which I'm really excited about. And my blog so far, it's grown so much already just in the space of the past couple of weeks, and there's so much more content on there, and it already looks more well-rounded and more comprehensive in terms of the actual content that's on there. And that's ideal for being able to grow your content, because at the end of the day, I think that some audiences are very picky with who they subscribe to, and if they can see that you're really inactive and you only post content like once or twice a year, for example. I know that's a very extreme example, and most people would at least try and post content, maybe once a month. I think even then, once a month for me, I would suggest more than that, because I just feel like you're not unleashing your full potential. I think once a month just doesn't cut it in terms of actually seeing growth. I don't think that people should start out with 2 posts a month either. Say, for example, if they're starting a blog, because I do think that that's quite a lot. Luckily, I'm quite a fast writer. And again, I've got a lot of content creation experience. So the actual process of sitting down and writing content isn't necessarily a challenge for me. And there's not much friction there. What I'm trying to do is actually just improve the overall quality of what it is that I say, and the formatting and the design and things like that. But I would start small, but at least get into the habit of creating content consistently. And then over time, what you'll notice is that you will be able to create more content because you'll get better at actually creating. Yeah, you'll get better at actually creating. And the better you get at creating, the faster you'll get at creating, and the more content you'll be able to fit into your day. But over at the beginning, you're still learning the skills, you're still learning how to do it in a way that kind of makes sense, in a way that is going to help you achieve your goals. So that's what I would recommend doing, is at least just getting into the habit of creating content every day. And if you did want to set yourself any challenges, once a month, couple of months, you're going to try posting more than you normally would. I do also think that's a good thing, if you feel like you can fit it in and you feel like you're really enjoying it, then do it. If you don't feel like you're enjoying it, then maybe that's a sign that actually you shouldn't be the one creating content and you need to get someone else to create content, because if you don't enjoy it, it's going to be harder for you to actually improve your skills in general, because you're just not going to be in it for the right reasons. It's going to be, I think, very obvious for readers that there wasn't as much kind of care and attention put into it as maybe, say, a piece of content that someone really genuinely enjoyed creating. So there is that, and I think that just being able to create content consistently and doing it just shows that you do enjoy creating it, and that this is the right kind of path for you as well. And there's no shame in not enjoying creating content. Everyone's skill set is different. Everyone has different hobbies and different capabilities. And if you don't enjoy creating content, there is no shame in that. Again, you can just get people to help you create content, and how in-depth that help is entirely up to you. If you just need someone to create a type of content that you really don't like, for example, you like writing, but you're not very good at making videos because you don't like being on camera, or you don't have the technical editing skills and you just find editing really frustrating, then maybe that's a sign that you need to actually just pass the torch on to someone. And then there's also the possibility of finding out that actually you don't have the time to create content, which is also very frustrating as well, because I think a lot of business owners that don't have the time are the business owners that actually appreciate content the most, because they're so frustrated by it. But I think they also, because they're so passionate, they also have kind of a resistance to getting the help that they need in order to get their content strategy and their content campaigns out there. So from idea to execution. So that would be my tip, is to just practice creating content consistently. And then if you are really struggling, maybe it's time to consider letting go some control and getting someone else to help you. So my next top tip is to actually practice creating different types of content that you maybe aren't that well versed in. So for example, for me, last year I kind of set myself the goal to start creating a podcast, because I'd had some kind of experience with audio editing and recording at university. My university, I was very lucky in that they had a whole podcast editing suite. Well, we saw it as that, but it was also a music studio as well for the music students. But we could use the microphones and take the recording and then use the editing software that the university had installed on their computers, which was Adobe Audition. So we could use that to kind of record and edit the podcast. So making a podcast and having access to really high quality equipment was a lot easier back then. But the first big thing that I had to overcome was a lot of sound issues. For a long time, I was recording my podcast just through my laptop microphone, and I realized over time that although it was relatively sufficient for a new podcast, someone who doesn't do this professionally, over time I wanted to improve the quality, because I just noticed that it had dropped significantly. And I don't know whether that's just because my laptop has aged and whether the microphone has also aged a little bit, or whether it was the software I was using. So I just decided to get a separate microphone, and it's been fantastic. It's been so much better, and it's so much easier for me to record the podcast. And I actually get excited about recording the podcast now, because it's something that's, there's not that much friction anymore. I can just input my microphone, get out my software, and I can just start speaking. And again, that's come from, at least just under a year of practice. And there's other types of content that I want to get better at as well. I'd really love to improve my video editing skills. And again, this is something that I had experience at uni with, but I know that video editing is so powerful for business growth because it's so personable and people can really get to know you and your personality. And I think because of that, it's a lot quicker to build trust than through written content. Obviously, you can show personality in written content, but I think that generally speaking, it's much more difficult to actually get to know the personality at a faster rate, which makes the sales process longer. Whereas if you kind of show your face and you show that you're a real person, that you're legitimate, I think, yeah, that increases your legitimacy for one and your credibility. And then obviously, if the person feels like they like your personality just through watching your videos, and if they found the video really helpful and that really delivered some kind of value to them, then they're going to be able to work with you. The point I'm trying to make here, I guess, is that you don't want to limit yourself to only being able to make one type of content. There's so much content out there that you really do actually want to make the most of that as much as possible. So just bear in mind that limiting yourself can actually be more detrimental to your content creation skills. Over time, obviously, you do want to define your channels and things, but at the beginning, I find that getting used to making different types of content can really help you in terms of your perspective and in terms of just your content creation skills in general. So, my last tip for you as far as creating content is to get better at repurposing content. So, I find that a really big thing for new content creators that don't necessarily have the time to create brand new content each day is to learn how to repurpose content. It's a thing that a lot of smaller content creators who are strapped for time get very excited about. But what I would say is that there are ways to repurpose content. Repurposing content isn't just about literally copying and pasting one piece of content from one platform and then distributing that to another platform. There's different kind of that you should follow in order to kind of maximize your content repurposing efforts. And let me just start by saying that content repurposing isn't necessarily easy either. I think it's a really good strategy to implement, especially with the rise in importance of vertical video content and just short form content in general in your content marketing strategies. But at the end of the day, I think that people need to realize that it's not just as simple as copying and pasting. They still need to put thought into it. There still needs to be a strategy behind it. And I've written a really in-depth blog post over on the Megan Taylor Creative blog all about how to repurpose content and why it's important and my approach to kind of starting repurposing content. Obviously, if you're just starting out from scratch, then repurposing content isn't necessarily going to be relevant to you because you're not going to have that much content to repurpose from. But if you've got a library of content like how I do with my podcast or with my blog, for example, I can take snippets of that and transform that content into a piece of content that is formatted for another distribution channel. So for example, if I were to get into making reels, then I would cut up pieces of my audio from my podcast. I would look at the key points in the podcast episode, and if I've written a blog post that too, I would make sure that whatever I cut and paste into the vertical video reflects the key point and the overall narrative of the episode. And then I would make sure to kind of upload any graphics, and I would find maybe some background noise because I know that background noise generally does like really well. And I would maybe lower that so that it's more in keeping with trends. So I could find some trending audio, and I would also upload some text so that when I'm speaking, the reader doesn't necessarily have to listen to the actual audio, because a lot of the time with short form video content, the user won't actually listen to the audio. So it's important to have subtitles and things like that so that they can still get the value of your video without actually having to listen to the audio if they're in a place where they can't really listen to audio or they don't have any headphones or anything like that. So that's really important for keeping your engagement up, and it's just learning the little things about a content distribution platform that really makes it tick. Another example rule kind of really applies to is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very, very heavily focused on pushing content creators that only deliver native content. And when I speak about native content, I'm talking about content that's actually been uploaded onto the platform, and that's not an external link linking to somewhere else. So I'm really bad at doing this. I don't cut up a snippet or an audio of my podcast. I just put the main YouTube video up, and then that's an external link. And I know that that podcast episode isn't going to be pushed as much as, say, if I were to actually put the time and effort into making a vertical video content or a internal video for LinkedIn. Obviously, I can still link to the video if I want to, or I can actually just tell people in text, go to the Megan Taylor Creative YouTube channel. It's pretty easy to find. It's one of the first things to find, and they'll be able to find it there. So it'll be like, obviously, if I'm promoting the latest episode, it will be the latest video there, and that would probably do me better. And I know that I need to get better at that. And that's what I mean when I say I'm still improving my content creation skills. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I just don't have the time to do things, especially as, say, for example, with my podcast. I do the podcast at the end of the week. So I edit it and then I upload it onto YouTube normally on a Friday. So sometimes towards the end of the week, I'm either burnt out or I just don't have the time. I'm finishing a lot of admin stuff for my clients, and then I just don't have the time or energy to actually do any more marketing. So in reality, what I maybe need to do is actually schedule the podcast earlier, edit the audio earlier, and then I'll have time to focus more on my marketing. And I'm going to do that as well with the blog posts that I'm writing, because then I can turn a lot of the tips that I'm including there into social media graphics or email campaigns and stuff like that. So knowing how to plan your time is really key to being able to repurpose content effectively. It's about looking at your cross-channel marketing and thinking, okay, what content is going out where? What are the content repurposing opportunities here? And how can I create repurposed content in a way that's going to maximize value? And that also starts with knowing how to create long-form content too. I think that is another big thing that people miss. I've always kind of planned my campaigns with one kind of overarching big piece form of content, kind of several different pieces of smaller but still long-form content. And then at the very bottom is all of the short-form content, which is where most of the cross-channel marketing kind of happens, and that helping me to increase my brand awareness, whereas the long-form in-depth content is probably going to be more for my more engaged audiences, people who are maybe returning visitors. They may still find me organically on, Google or through social media, so I need to be cognizant of the fact that there's probably going to be some new people checking out my content as well. But generally speaking, that's how I plan my campaigns, and because I can plan my campaigns like that, I always have that kind of structure in my head, which makes repurposing content a lot easier. So yeah, that's it. That's everything I have for you today. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed recording this episode specifically. I love talking about content creation and talking about my methods behind how I actually create content, because I find that it's very soothing to hear someone else's struggles. It's very easy with content creation to feel alone and feel like you're not improving your skills and you're the only one that's not improving your skills, but we all struggle. Even the people that really love creating content, that have had years and years of creating content, they still have off days where they're just not feeling creative, when they just can't get into the swing of things, or when they just don't have the time to. And again, as I said before, being able to manage your time is a massive part of being able to effectively create content. And if you are struggling to manage your time, or just don't enjoy creating content but understand the value of it and the value of content marketing for business growth, then please get in touch with Megan Taylor Creative. We work with clients throughout the entire content marketing campaign cycle, but we can also work with you on one-off projects. Say, for example, if you have an emergency blog post, or you just wanted a couple of social media graphics delivered for like 1 month, for example, or for a special campaign, then we'd be happy to work with you. So I'll leave all that information about how you can work with us in the description below. As always, if you liked this episode, please like the video on YouTube and subscribe to our channel so that you can be made aware of new episodes every time they get uploaded. And as always, I will speak to you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.